Your attention, please, ladies and gentlemen. This may represent one of mankind's greatest achievements. Life, the world, the human condition. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the future.
It's not every day something like this happens.
How is this possible?
Oh God, what a mess. You tried to kill me. You can't be serious.
Do you think I did it? Do you think I did it?
I have had enough of being used. You are going to regret crossing me.
Hello everyone and welcome to the GOG.com livestream. My name is Vlad and I have the wonderful pleasure of being your host again, this time for a very special livestream for the Technobabylon launch today. From Technocrat Games I have a special guest, sorry about that, Mr. James. Please say hello.
Hello there.
Okay guys who are in chat, if you've heard me and James say hello, please let us know if the sound levels are okay for you guys with the game and everything. Okay, since we're not getting any negative feedback, okay, everybody says that it sounds okay. Perfect.
Fantastic.
So, would you be so kind as to introduce yourself?
Can do. My name's James Dearden. I'm the developer. I'm the only person involved at Technocrat Games. And I'm the developer for Technobabylon, which was published through Wajitae Games, and it's been released today.
So, Technocrat Games, is that essentially it's your company, but is that formed by more people?
At the moment it's just me. It's sort of an ad hoc thing. Depending on what game we're making, we sometimes bring more people in. We bring talent in from outside, artists, voice, sound, music people. So depending on the game, different people are involved, but I'm the only one who's here all the time.
Okay, so a one-man show.
Pretty much, yes.
Let's start a new game.
Looks like you found the place.
You're sure this is the one?
I'm positive. Latha Sesame goes by mandala in the Trance. There's a big gap in the records, and it's shaped exactly like her.
I thought you said he put a lot of effort into it.
They've been hiding her activity, but weren't covering up their own work very well.
If they did, then
How are the headaches?
won't be a problem for much longer.
You understand the plan?
Don't worry, I know exactly what I'm doing. After all, I've been planning this for years.
There's nothing like being in trance. A world built of abstracts and intellect, of tangible thought,
where every part has been crafted by an individual soul. It's the purest form of contact a person can have, mind to mind. It's the pinnacle of human achievement. Some might say that achievement in the physical world is somehow more meaningful. To them I say, join the future or be surpassed by it. Within the trance, we are millions of minds as one. But even as far as we've come, there's still one serious flaw. Its reliance on the real world as its backbone. And disconnections. Damn. Don't panic. I'll just go and speak to the building manager. It's not like there's anything to be afraid of out there. Let's get this over with.
So finally the player's in control.
Yep. So, of course, everyone has now just realized, if they didn't know already, that Technobabylon is a science fiction game. Can you describe a little bit the setting?
Yep, it's set in a city called Newton in the year 2087. Newton's sort of an independent city-state on the east coast of Africa, sort of like a hyper-independent version of like Dubai, with very, very geared towards sort of keeping itself independent in terms of law and culture from everyone else. But arguably what it's led to is a lot of debauchery and people turning inwards, navel-gazing, becoming obsessed with this future internet, the Trance, which this young lady, Latha, is an addict of.
So, essentially, you would describe it's a sort of a future version of ancient Rome.
That's a good way of putting it, yeah. Sort of the end of the Roman Republic kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, so one of the first things that a lot of people have said, they like the first person there, the first character who appeared on screen and talked. A lot of people saying that he looks a bit like George Stobart from Broken Sword, and someone said it was like Gabriel Knight and Brink from The Dig had a son.
That's not actually far off. The chap who did the art for the character portraits, Ivan Ulinov, we would sort of come up with plans of what we wanted the characters to look like, based not just on the sort of the character sprite, but also sort of their attitude or other characters and actors we could think of. And yes, The Dig was a big source on that, but almost Teutonic, almost German kind of look to him as well. Like, sort of later on, when you learn his name, it's sort of he's very much of German extraction. I think if we'd had non-American voice actors, I would have opted for him to be voiced by somebody from Germany, Austria, Central Europe. But because all the voice acting was done in New York, everyone sounds like they're from New York.
So we have a question from chat, if you don't mind. They're asking exactly what your role was besides overseeing the entire project. Did you handle specifically the writing or the programming, or a little bit of everything?
My role was mostly writing and programming, indeed. I basically dealt with the scripting, the programming, the story, the dialogue. The way it worked, unfortunately, the engine when using AGS is not very cooperative with splitting tasks amongst people, so it had to be just me doing the programming. But Ben Chandler, our main artist, he handled the backgrounds and character art. He did a very good job of it. I also did the 3D models for the art as well. Basically, almost all of the backgrounds in this game are based on a 3D model, which is then sort of painted over and rotoscoped. In this case, like the animation under the platform, that was sort of 3-4 concentric circles with a bit chopped out, set on rotating around the Z-axis.
Also, rotoscoping, that's like the first time I came into contact with or heard about that thing was when I learned about how a guy named Ralph Bakshi did some animated movies in the 70s. I think he did the Lord of the Rings animated movie and the Hobbit. No, not the Hobbit, no, the Lord of the Rings animated movie and something about Fritz the Cat. which was a really weird animated movie, adult-oriented, let's say. One of the things that I noticed is that you seem to be pushing this AGS engine, I think, to further limits than I've seen it pushed by other games.
Yeah, well, fortunately, the version we're using here, well, now it's currently the most up-to-date, the newest AGS. It can do more than the previous versions. They're about to put out the newest sort of 3.4 within the next few weeks, I think. But I think we're pretty much reaching the limit of what can be done with AGS. So I and Dave Gilbert, Mojitai, we're all thinking of moving on to Unity or Unreal Engine next. But for now, AGS has been suitable for our needs because we make adventure games. But it's taken a lot of trickery to get it to do what we wanted to make it look like it does.
You mentioned Wajitai just as I opened the news app, let's say in Trance, and here's an Easter egg for the Blackwell Epiphany, the novel. Yeah, Wajitai, you mentioned them. Someone in chat said everything they publish or make was up until now, including Technobabylon, based on AGS. Is that sort of an easier thing to get into if you're trying to design a point and click?
If you want to design a point and click, AGS is, in my opinion, the best way to go for it. The other big one for it is, I think, still Wintermute, but AGS was a great way to start. I think it was probably like the fourth thing I experimented with in terms of programming, because first it was Doom mods, second it was Half-Life mods, then I went into text adventures, then point-and-click adventures using AGS.
Okay, let's just move a little bit forward in the game and exit Trance.
Better go and talk to the building manager. Ah! Ouch! Huh? Password error, huh? I guess the door's broken too. Contact manager. I'm trapped?
For the first time that you can remember, the prospect of staying inside your apartment is frightening to you. Yeah, can you? So obviously, this takes place, you said, in a city of the future. What version, let's say, of the future that you maybe have seen in a movie or something like that influenced the design choices here? I'm seeing sort of things that remind me of Blade Runner, or maybe even things that remind me of the recent Judge Dredd movie.
Well, in this one, this was the first scene that Ben Chandler drew for the game. If anyone's played the older freeware demo versions that came in 2010, they'd recognise this room. But
guess I'm not as strong as I thought.
Sorry about that.
Out this way.
This is one of the few rooms where it wasn't based on a 3D model, because basically I said to Ben Chandler, I'm looking for artists to help on Technobabylon, and then, a couple of hours later this arrives. I'm like, oh, okay. Essentially, he'd gone for, he's drawing from the shape of the room as it was in the old version of the game, and applied the sort of green, blue, glowing palette that's ubiquitous all over the game, and very much sort of taken a Blade Runner definitely approach to it. But my own inspiration is actually my own apartment in South Korea when I used to live there.
Oh, that's an interesting... I'm gonna have to get you to say more about South Korea.
Well, I used to live there. I was an English teacher in South Korea, and when I was working there, they assigned me an apartment to live in, and that was where I made the first bits of Technobabylon in 2010. And this place, it's sort of based on that in terms of things like tiles everywhere, and yes, it's very messy. Gee, I wonder why that's the case. Yeah, that was me. A slob who's addicted to the internet all the time. Gee, I wonder how far I'm looking for that one.
Office to get more printed.
So anything from, like, I don't know how South Korea is population-wise, but for example, I've seen some things about Japan where Everything
Nothing
is
in here.
so crowded that they even have apartments that are this sort of really tiny, let's say, Babylonic towers of living space. Like you have just enough room to enter the apartment on the first floor, then you go up a set of stairs and you have this tiny little bathroom, another set of stairs, this tiny little living room. Is the idea that she's living in this one room flat, almost prefabricated space, inspired by something from South Korea in terms of, maybe overpopulation and things like that?
It's kind of the bare minimum of what someone needs to live. It's got a bed, it's got a little bathroom,
If I
it's got a
keep
food
randomly
machine,
cutting
it's got an
cables, I'm
internet
going to end up
connection,
electrocuted
and anything
eventually.
else is just ostentatious and unnecessary. In her case, she doesn't need or want anything else because she's got her connection to the trance. I think in terms of this game's world, it's because her apartment is provided by the state. She's jobless, she's unemployed, she's on state support, and so they want to make it as unappealing as possible, to try and incentivize people to want to live somewhere better. But she just doesn't care. She's got her connection.
So wetware still.
In her bathroom, she grows a chemical called wetware. You remove the gelatinous clump of semi-organic wetware you've been cultivating in the still. It looks like it's grown enough to be usable by now. So, originally that was just her bathroom, but we had some of the testers didn't. Originally, she grew her wetware in the toilet. So a toilet glowing bright blue, but it didn't. Too many of the testers didn't look in the toilet, and so Dave made an executive decision and said, okay, we've got to make this more sci-fi. So I think, okay,
I'm not that hungry.
grows it in a machine in her bathroom she's built out of bits and pieces.
Yeah, that also I think that's a little bit more even visually hygienic, let's say. And in a way, interesting character. I when I played for a little bit, I immediately felt sort of a connection to the fact that she doesn't want to leave her apartment and is content to spend her time being online or connected to the world.
For some reason, a lot of people seem to identify with.
The NetGames trophy I won in '84. I don't know why I've still got it. I pretty much scrapped everything else to build the wetware still.
Yeah, the puzzle here originally involved a lot more things happening in the apartment. There were a lot more. So you picked up a trophy that's made of metal. It's part of a puzzle, but there used to be a need to get a lot more metal from within the apartment. Again, we cut that down because it's the first section of the game, and people were spending too long in here. It just sort of ruined the flow a bit.
Someone in chat is saying that they have a PhD friend, a researcher, who believes that the way humanity can save itself from certain self-induced Armageddon is to connect everyone's minds together using technology, thus losing the sense of self and sort of connecting everyone's experiences together, removing selfishness, the need for war and suffering. Is this game touching on that subject from a negative or a positive perspective?
Well, I believe that's also the plot of Forever Free by Joe Haldeman. But I think that's probably a very optimistic way of looking at it. Personally, I think that even if we were to all join together, the first thing people would do is use it for mucking around. The internet, yes, it helped us build a lot more understanding, but I don't think we would immediately end up with a spontaneous display of human compassion and love just as a result of our connection. People would still be people, but we might have a better understanding of each other. It might take a bit more than just a connection, I think.
Yeah, someone said just imagine the trolls on that level of connectivity. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. This idea of wetware and trance and everything, was that...
It's a homegrown lump of techno-organic wetware gel.
Is that...
connecting my brain's wetware to the external systems.
Is that what maybe inspired a little bit by William Gibson's Neuromancer?
Trance definitely has its origins in things like Neuromancer, so it's sort of a virtual world. Essentially, if we were running dreams as part of a network connection, and we could experience each other's visual, create scenes out of sensation, feeling, sight, smell, sound, and run them in your own brain. That's kind of the same roots as cyberspace in Neuromancer or any other cyberpunk fiction, really. But the way I'm doing it, I was thinking of doing it more on a organic scale. Oh yes, this is my favourite character again.
Your interactive guide to THE Foods Auto Meal Sweets.
Was the decision to make Chefy anime-inspired something that you had, pre-thought, or is it intentional for a certain reason or something?
Well, the company she's representing, THE Foods, Tatsumoto Heavy Engineering. So it was sort of originally an idea of this company whose name is, you would think something obviously unsuited to something as human or organic as food, a heavy engineering company, fundamentally misunderstanding their consumers and, what do people like? I don't know, make it kawaii. Well, they just stuck a mascot on it and expecting people to like it, to cooperate. So, I think also it's supposed to be a Japanese company as well, so I think anime will stick around for a while, or at least the style will.
Yeah, there's that scene in Blade Runner where they're flying through the city and there's Japanese sort of commercials playing on the side of buildings, so definitely I can understand where you're coming from. I like, for example, in my opinion, like, out of everything science fiction has done as film, not necessarily in written form, Blade Runner is the closest depiction of the future that, as I see it, ending up as. So I immediately connected to this sort of representation of the entire world's culture sort of mashing together in a sort of a mashed potato sort of thing. I don't know how to describe it.
That is what I think will happen when more people get more connected, rather than the sort of empathy. You end up with a mixing of what people like best about each other's cultures.
Using THE's patented and proven protein fiber synthesis reserve system, I'm able to whip up some of the tastiest
a big trope of
treats
sort
you've
of
ever had.
cyberpunk and sci-fi in the 80s was Japan and Japanese industry taking over the world, because at the time in the 80s that looked like what was happening. The Japanese also industry was demolishing the US one, and Japan was becoming extraordinarily wealthy. It was a big thing in William Gibson's books as well. But in the 90s that kind of petered off. But it still kind of remained a thing in the popular consciousness of science fiction. People will recognise the idea of Japan everywhere,
I've had
Japanese
to live off your
influence
crap
and
for
things.
2 years now. It's bland and it feels like runny puke. I have trouble swallowing, and every mouthful makes starvation that little bit more appealing.
I'm sorry to hear that. Have you tried any of our new recipes recently? Let's look for some. Oopsie, it looks like I can't connect. Don't worry, you can always use the memory cards in the machine to upload delicious new recipes.
I love the way that was sort of a hint for the puzzle that you need to solve within a conversation. It doesn't necessarily tell you what to do, but you have to look at that memory card.
Yeah, if you've got to telegraph a lot of these things in some case. Otherwise, if you've given people no clue as to what to do, then it's very frustrating. Just experimenting by clicking on everything is not a rewarding way of doing it, I think. If you let them, if you reward them for paying attention and listening to what people are saying, then that is, in my opinion, a much more rewarding way to play.
If you want something a little different, don't forget, you can always download new recipes for me to take a look at.
You can always download new recipes, hint, hint.
Exactly.
Bye!
So how hard is it to, like, I've always been curious. I've watched the documentaries behind the scenes of Broken Age. If you're familiar with that point-and-click adventure game, they released an entire documentary sort of chronicling the process they went through with making that game. And one of the things they didn't go into is, how do you go about designing a puzzle to where it's at the same time challenging or mysterious, but also solvable, let's say.
The way I deal with it, I like to sort of work sort of start with the solution, start with the problems, end with the solution, and then work backwards from the solution. So, for example, in this case, Latha can't get out of the door. That's her problem. Solution: she needs, or I'll spoil it a little bit. She needs a metal fork in order to prise the control panel off the door. And we need to work backwards. How does she get a fork? And then what's stopping her getting the fork? And then sort of branching off from that. But amongst that, also including kinds of clues as to how one deals with this. So, for example, if you try sticking the plastic fork in the control panel, it breaks. That's a sort of clue that, okay, that's almost worked. How do we improve upon plastic fork? Ah, yes, email spam.
Yeah, I found this funny that even in the future there's this sort of Nigerian prince type of scam still going on. Yeah, I've received an email like this. A relative of yours has recently passed away. I think they said in the United Kingdom or something like that. Unfortunately, the person who tried to scam me, well, I figured out it was a scam immediately, but they used a completely non-Romanian sounding first name, and that was a giveaway. Like, how the hell would that person be even related to me with that first name? I wouldn't have known. I'm part something else.
They must have some success somewhere, otherwise they wouldn't still be around. But
yeah, I understood that in I think in the United States they do have actually a considerable success rate, let's call it that, because of elderly people with access to the internet, or who are more willing than maybe at one point in time European elderly people were to go online. Now, this was the part of the puzzle that when I play tested this before the stream, I played the demo. This was the part of the puzzle that I had a problem with. I couldn't figure out. I mean, I knew I had to do something to get some new recipes or something like that, and I didn't figure out that this attachment here in the email is something that needs to be looked at. But again, another spam. Amazing deals on chem. Do you want the extra interface speed? But then, poor spelling.
It's sort of copying the style of those emails that you get, obvious fakes. Do you want medicine, improve your performance, etc., etc. The kind of cyber twist to it. It's a thing you can download straight into your brain. And, if you're downloading malware to your brain, that's going to be even worse than your computer.
When we talked a little bit earlier about the disadvantages of having everyone connected via something like the Trance.
Exactly. You get all the problems of computing with the problems of, medicine, and you've got people having to run AVG or Norton on their own psyche.
Yeah, that would be tricky. Imagine trying to wake up in the morning and instead of seeing the sunrise, you see a 10-minute ad.
Oh, pop-ups everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. It's close. Okay. We've connected we've downloaded the virus, uploaded it on the food machine's memory card, and now we're going back into Trance. One of the things that I don't know if this is going to sound strange, but I don't know if you're familiar with the Shadowrun games, the RPGs on PC.
I am indeed, yes. And Mega Drive and SNES as well.
Yeah, the thing that I liked about this, so Technobabylon, from the immediate moment when I saw it, was, so if Shadowrun is cyberpunk and it's sort of this god mode vision over the characters and everything they do, and you see everything like you're watching an ant farm, Technobabylon is like you're directly in the ant farm and seeing what's happening in those buildings that you pass by in Shadowrun Returns or games like that. I found the design choices and everything immediately familiar, but at the same time really interesting.
It's sort of designed to be a human story. It's done from the perspective of the people within it. The great thing about adventure games is, although you're controlling these characters, they have a great deal of their own agency. They're the ones through whom the story is being told. They've got their own personality. They're the ones talking and expressing their views as it goes.
Let's see what's happening now with the food machine.
Hi, I'm Sheffy, your
Let's skip a little bit.
What's on your recipe card now?
I see there's some new recipe data. It looks like...
Poor Sheffy.
some people who've had sort of negative response to
Apparently,
Sheffy.
whatever virus was riding that
One
T-mail
person
is doing some
complained that she
damage.
looks too anime.
You don't look so good.
And somebody else said she's annoyed. That's the point. You're supposed
Sounds
to
more
want to
like you
destroy
need
her.
someone to put
Yeah.
you out of your misery.
The thing that I sort of liked, I saw there's, when you get the game on GOG, you have that behind the scenes video, and there's that clip of the voice actress doing the exact sounds of the Sheffy breaking down, and I thought, initially I thought that was done from, you know, audio editing or something, but she has that amazing ability to mimic machines dying.
She does. Jessica Pepper, she was the absolute perfect choice for this. She absolutely nailed how we wanted Sheffy the Chef to sound. So, yeah, if you try talking to her now, her
How would I
usual
stop
response
you
is
stopping me? I need a fork.
a bit altered.
How about I stop you stopping me stopping you?
Then I guess I'd have to stop you stopping me stopping you stopping me?
She's a little less polite than she was.
Oh, you're safe, Vince.
Ciao.
If I remember correctly, but I'm not sure I do, we have to interact with the security computer now.
Yes, so Sheffy's got a virus. What do? We run the antivirus on it.
Exactly. If I remember.
Still not working.
Nope.
Apparently I can't
So,
just
we
wait
got
for
to
the
get it to
problem
appear
fix
in the
itself.
trance. What did we
Can't
do to
rely
the
on
food
anyone
machine to get it
else.
to appear in the trance?
Yep, forgot about that.
It's a sort of concept that comes up a lot in the game, so I think this chapter is a good way of getting people into that concept. You know, wetware plus system equals connection to that system.
I would love to have that ability to just plug something into my brain directly. Okay, computer, do this and that. Make things so much easier. Instead of having to press buttons to switch between things for the live stream, I just think it and it would happen.
That's the theory, anyway.
Forsooth, who would summon the guardian of thine abode?
The thing that I like about both Sheffy and even the security computer is they seem funny at first, but when you talk to them, they're sort of a bit condescending. And it seems like what real companies would do, they would design something that would essentially treat you as if you're less intelligent than you are. In a way, I don't know, I see that a lot.
Exactly. Yeah. It is pretty much these companies
I think
personified.
Sheffy the Chef's come
And so,
down with
yeah,
something.
on the surface,
Steward
they're
harbours a blight? Zounds!
helpful
This shall not be
customer
allowed to
first, but
continue.
you know, frankly, they've got a great deal of contempt
Foul
for the ones they're
harbinger.
working for.
There are grave accusations of treason upon your head, steward. Stand and
Again,
face
he's
me.
absolutely
We shall
nailed
see
the
what
delivery
trial
for
by
the night.
combat makes of you.
I'm sorry, I don't play.
Every time I saw him, I couldn't not think. I could not think of Don Quixote.
Well, that takes care of her.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry guys in chat if I'm not moving fast enough through the game. I really do enjoy, with every single game, taking my time and actually discovering elements that compose the world and the characters and everything. I don't like moving through games at a blistering pace, ignoring everything. It's not about completing the game for me, it's about going... It's not about getting to the end of the game, it's about playing the game, going for the ride, not getting at the end of the ride.
Besides, if you go through it too much, there'll be no reason for anyone to buy the game, and I don't want that.
That's correct. By the way, guys in chat, just a quick more question for you. I've been sort of stopping myself from clicking on things or interacting with things in the game while we're talking, because I don't want you guys to not hear us speak and hear the game. I'm not sure how the sound levels are on your side when James or myself are talking over what's happening in the game. If for you guys our voice levels are high enough, as they are right now, I can just power on through, you know, inverted commas, through things from the game while we're talking about it. Hey, I clicked on the wrong part of the machine. Now we can switch to metal and get some metal parts.
Yay. Yeah, the food machine is one of the things I didn't have in my apartment in Korea. It would have made life so much easier there.
Yeah.
Got it.
One of the things that I find sort of interesting about Star Trek is the fact that it says that when people will be able to have those food replicators and food production won't be an issue, the chase for material interests would stop and people would just focus on bettering mankind and themselves. It's sort of the opposite of Blade Runner in my mind.
Yeah, Gene Roddenberry was very optimistic sort of man.
Yeah.
He also believed that we wouldn't be using zips or buttons by the year 2020.
That sort of cityscape, was that also in AGS?
This is it. Animus Organics.
It was in it.
You
Well,
think Central's right on
the
this
game
one?
was
I still
engineered
don't
in
think
AGS,
an AI,
but that
however
actual
powerful,
cityscape
could
itself
predict a
based
crime
on
like this.
a place
However,
in Paris
if it
called La
does help us catch
Défense.
the Mindjacker.
Because
Central
when
hasn't
I
exactly been
commented up,
generous
I
with
was
details.
staying in Paris
I
with my
don't
wife,
really think
who's
we're
been
gonna
working
find
over there
anything
for
here.
months
There
and
are other
months.
stronger leads we ought to be
So I was
chasing.
working on Technobabylon there. This whole scene actually was introduced last. Originally, there was a different scene here that we changed. So, within 2 weeks, we managed to cobble up this whole new scene at the office here.
One of the things that I really liked, sorry for interrupting you here, is the fact that I get this sort of weird vibe from the policemen. They're sort of colorful and intelligent and completely unexpected in this sort of bleak-ish sci-fi setting. Any inspiration for the uniforms? They're sort of friendlier than they are right now, friendlier looking.
Well, I was thinking when I was coming up with planning the game originally, Cell, that's the agent, the police
Hey,
agency in the city.
anyone there?
They're
Doesn't
not
look like anyone's
trying
around.
to appear, like evil secret police, because much like I don't think anyone tries to
loud.
appear evil,
Yeah?
this agency, Cell, they want to be friendly. A lot of Cell's officers and agents are more like tour guides or people who help citizens rather than, quasi-fascist military police. That sort of thing was done behind the scenes, very subtly.
So
Regis
Central
and
predicted
Lau,
our
these two
Mindjacker was
detectives,
going
they
to
are
strike here.
You don't
Um,
trust it?
I just don't
they're
understand how
they're
it came
both
to that
doctors
conclusion.
in their respective
Obviously,
fields.
we're doing our jobs right.
They are
We
experts,
collect data, which
and
Central interprets.
their job is
Based on
more,
that data, it maps a pattern.
theoretically,
Why
it's more
isn't
about
it a pattern that we
analysis
can see?
and
It's not only us. Central's
taking in
got all of the
information
city, the
for
whole
Central.
net to draw
That is
on.
the
But it
AI that
won't
runs
tell us
everything
how it's come to
to
the conclusion
come to
where
a
the
conclusion
Mindjacker
about.
will strike.
So
Does it think we
they're
can't
less.
understand?
They're
Is it
supposed to be less
concealing something?
police and
Just be
more
glad we've
like
got
the
an advantage
eyes and
like
ears
Central.
of Central
I still
itself.
don't like it.
Now, so I don't know if I noticed, I think it's sort of random connection and maybe sort of the general direction in which society is heading that maybe influenced this and not some sort of hive mind mentality. But Wajitai published Primordia and Technobabylon and earlier Gemini Rue. They all have this science fiction setting with futuristic, bleak cities. And one thing that I noticed is sort of a connection between this and Primordia, which is a game that I really, really liked. There's this machine that controls everything and not people.
I think the AI controller, that's a sort of popular running topic in science fiction. In this case, Central's job isn't so much to he doesn't rule a city so much as organize things. So if you, later on in the game, as you sort of read emails and
You
news
don't like that
reports, to sort
Central's
of learn,
predicted this,
the
do
city
you?
has an
It's
elected
not how
council
investigations are
of
supposed to be
councillors
done.
Admit it.
who
You're
formulate
afraid
the
your
policy.
job's
They
going to be
say
stolen
this is
by
what the city's going to
machines,
do.
kind
These
of
are our
like weavers,
priorities,
factory
and
workers,
they say, okay,
paupers.
Central, this
Just
needs to
how
be
old do
done,
you think
and
I
Central,
am?
the AI,
No,
determines
don't
how
answer
best
that.
to
I just don't like having that key
what to
bit of
do with its
information kept
staff,
from
how
me.
to allocate
You need to learn
resources
to
in order
work
to
with
accomplish
Central.
these goals.
It's not our enemy. It
So-
works for us
But the
as we
people
work for
underneath
it.
it, people like these two, it still seems to them like Central's their boss.
Now, without any intention of trying to pry spoilers from you, so if there's spoilers to be had by answering the question, feel free to avoid it. Any influence in designing the character of Central, let's say, don't know how big of a role it has later on, any influence from Asimov's laws of robotics?
I personally think that again,
I've
it's sort
lost
of
count of the
Asimov's
number of
robotics
times
is a
the
very
Mindjacker struck.
optimistic
In
way of
Newton or
looking at
globally?
things, and
Now just a figure of
personally,
speech.
I
He's
think
been on
there's
the
sufficient
rampage
demand
too
for
long,
robots
but
that
now
don't
he's in our territory.
qualify
Should
for
give us the
the three
advantage.
laws. You know, the biggest users of robots in practical purposes these days are the armed forces. We've got drones, unmanned aircraft. Give it a few years, we'll have the unmanned tanks and big dogs on the ground. So I think we're probably not going to see AI, artificial intelligence and robots that are quite so constrained. It's sort of a limiter, a bit too limiting, perhaps. So Central is definitely not constrained by those kinds of restrictions. Its viewpoint is holistic. It wants the greater good.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Skynet would much rather be a likely, let's say, endpoint for AIs than things that were designed to. So Daniel Olivaw from Asimov's writings, the sort of omniscient AI character that wants the best for mankind and actually does things that help mankind. I don't think that's going to be a likely endpoint for where I see mankind and technology evolving. One of the things that I love about the game from the beginning was the name Technobabylon. I think we're not there yet, as sort of a technological Babylon in society, but I think we're heading there, especially with, let's say, corporate mentality taking over things rather than philosophical or the intelligentsia, let's say, of the society. I'm sorry for going in wild tangents there.
Yeah, as long as if this game's provoking thought, then that's what it's doing exactly. It's what it's supposed to do.
Now, so these two detectives, let's say, they're officers, for lack of I don't know, agents.
Agents, yeah.
Yep. They're investigating the case of the Mindjacker. Where, I mean, I think there was a movie, if I remember correctly, with the lead singer of Rolling Stones. Called Mindjack or something like that, where there was this race car driver that gets his brain hacked, and I think he crashes. And I don't remember the name of the actor, Charlie Sheen's real life brother, Emilio Estevez. Yeah, I think that is the guy who played, or Al Pacino. I don't remember. Sorry, but yeah, the name Mindjack. Any sort of connection to its previous uses, let's say in B science fiction movies?
Well, until you mentioned it a minute ago, I'd not heard of that movie. I remember in 2011 there was a game called Mindjack, but that came out a year after Technobabylon's original versions did, so you can't accuse me of plagiarizing from that.
No, I'm not. Definitely not implicating.
In this case, it's just sort of. It sounded nice. It's got good sonance to it. It sort of
Do we have
conjures
any
up
ideas about our perp?
mind
The fact
hijacking.
that he's stealing data
sort of
straight
a
from living neural wiring is
kind
disturbing,
of logical
but it
portmanteau
tells
that
us a couple
comes
of
together.
important things.
Yeah, one of the
Well,
first
previously caught mindjackers
popular
have usually burnt out
interpretations
after
of
one
the
or two
idea
attacks.
of
Sharing a whole
borrowing
other's
memories
memory
or
data is
storing
very
things
complex.
within one's
So we're
memory was the
looking
movie
for someone with a really
Johnny
specialized
Mnemonic,
weapon
another
set up
cyberpunk
heads.
sort of
Pity they
interpretation.
won't
So
tell us what they look like.
a lot of
The other problem
cyberpunk
is how
themes
slippery
that
this guy is.
meld
Only
together.
fragments of
For me,
appearances on
this
camera,
feels
no
like
clear witnesses.
Which
this
means
first
he's
part of the
either a
game, which
master
is
of
also included
disguise.
in the demo,
Or there's
was
some
for me
pretty
sort of
high
like
up
sitting
collusion
down
going
on a
That
rainy
wouldn't
Sunday
surprise
with a
me
good
if he were
book.
a business hire.
Still, after this many
well,
hits,
glad you
he may
enjoyed
start
it.
to slip.
Yeah, it's sort of.
Even if it's just his
There are a
psyche
lot of
breaking.
themes that are worth exploring because what you can do, a lot
Let
of
me
what
know
happens in
if you
science
find
fiction is
anything.
Will do,
people
Regis.
sort of go over, theoretical concepts and explore ideas, and then somebody else comes back to them later with a different opinion on the matter, and sort of the story takes a different direction based on how they think.
Hey, service!
Society,
Animus must be one of those
humanity would
places
react
that
to
doesn't
things.
keep
Kind
staff
of like the
working
difference
nights.
between
Very strange.
Starship Troopers and the Forever War. So Joe Haldeman and I've forgotten the name. Starship Troopers.
The elevator's locked.
Yeah, I don't remember the
Camel
name of
says
the writer
authorized
either, sorry.
personnel only.
I guess
Oh.
maybe
I only saw the
one who counts
movie,
as authorized,
um,
then.
The movie's good for different reasons. The movie's sort of like the complete opposite interpretation of the themes. And
There we
morals.
go. Love that. I was playing the game. I was like, "What's
What
that
the
shouting?"
hell?
There's this sort of sound that has been used in a lot of movies. It's a generic sound for someone dying and falling. It's called the Wilhelm scream, and this is the sort of the first other dying and falling scream that I found competes with that for impact.
When Nathan Pennard, the chap who did the Sound of Music, he engineered this sort of fall.
What'd you find?
He gave me two
security
versions,
card.
one with the
This
scream
man
and
was
one without.
custodial
And,
staff, a janitor.
Probably
apparently,
not
the
a
version with the
Mindjacker's
scream made
target
everyone in the
then.
room laugh when he
Still,
created
I
it.
don't
But
think this was
it
an
sounded
accident.
so much
We
better
need
with
to
it.
find
It's
out
just sort
what's
of
going on here.
Yeah, you're immediately sort of placed into the what's going on mentality.
yeah, you sort of, what's happening, and then bam.
Yeah, exactly. Because at first you're not sure if it's someone getting attacked. It's a layered, let's say, type of sound. Oh, I
Robert
think.
Heinlein, that's the one who wrote Starship Troopers.
Yeah. Someone corrected me, so the movie that I mentioned was called Free Jack.
Ah.
Okay. Oh, we have
Cell agent.
Looks like we'll
clicked on the wrong thing. Happens a lot in adventure games. And didn't click on the
The
inventory.
elevators.
It's unlocked floor 26 for us.
Must be where its owner was working.
Yeah, floor 26. I work in a tall building, but I'm only on the 11th floor. I think I'd go dizzy at the 26th floor.
Obscenely tall skyscrapers, that's another cyberpunk cliche.
Yeah, and believe me, it's coming true. I work in an area of Bucharest, Romania, where
Rooms all around the
there
planet know
used to
it's
be
been for a
factories
while.
and such, which
Yeah,
have now been
this is our
disabled,
mindjacking victim.
and
Central
they're building
Buzzword.
taller and taller skyscrapers.
The attack
Essentially.
was
Well, not
recent,
skyscrapers.
maybe
We're
minutes ago.
not
The
yet
Mindjacker
at that.
was
We have maybe
probably
one,
interrupted by the
but
janitor who ended up on
we
the
have
street.
one. We
There's
didn't
only
use. We
one
used to
other
have
way
0.
out
So.
here, to the roof.
In the old
We
days,
need to
when they
get
first
up
started
there
making them,
before he escapes
skyscrapers
again.
in New York were about 12 stories tall.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a question that I have about this telephone. Are these the voices of the people that you get to blind dial? Are these the volunteers that you were asking for publicly?
Yeah, these are 6 of the volunteers. There's on the phone slightly later on, after this scene at this office, where there are near 51 volunteers and 102 different voices, responses on the telephone. So these ones, I just chose a few to fill out this list to avoid making this puzzle too easy, rather than just calling the right person straight away. But yeah, the other calls, they did a really good job, and I think next time I make a game, I'm definitely going to put out another call for people to contribute their voices to it.
For people in chat, the way where I know the fact that these are volunteer voices, other than the public announcement from the Technocrat Games Twitter account, is the fact that that's the first time I got in touch with James. I too eagerly volunteered to provide a voice recording, and by the time I had figured out what to do and how to do it and what I wanted to do, it was a bit too late, and he already had enough material to develop this part of the game. I apologized sincerely for having delayed that, and this is my attempt to make it up to him by presenting the game on the live stream.
No worries, we'll put in more. I'm sure I'll have more of these next game. Technobabylon 2.
It's without trying to sound weird, I love it when a developer finds a way to include people in the development of a game without and making it meaningful, let's say.
It's good. It's a good way to build a rapport with the community, and plus it means I've now got 50 people who can say to their friends, "Buy this game, I'm in it."
Yeah, exactly. It's an interesting thing. I mean, Big Finish Games, who developed Tesla Effect, they included photographs of every single Kickstarter backer, I think, or at least the major Kickstarter backers in the game, and I think it's a fun thing to roam around the level, but that's a Unity-based 3D first-person game. You roam around the level and you're solving puzzles, and all of a sudden there's a picture of you on the wall.
It's a good thing to do. I look forward to seeing more games doing it.
Hello, it's Pat. If you want to give me money, I'm busy.
I love this guy.
Money, go away. And if you don't want to talk about money, don't ever call me again. Cheers.
Yeah, I should do that at the beginning of the live streams.
Hello? Do you
Sorry, wrong number.
One of the things that I really like is the fact that everything so far in the game has been, so despite the fact that it's a 2D point-and-click pixelated game, pixel graphics, not pixelated, sorry, a game, there's this fantastic cinematic movement to everything that's happening. For example, our partner right now doesn't stand still, she moves around. The music provides this sort of eerie, mysterious ambience to it. How different is that from, let's say, how much effort did you go into to make this happen compared to the previous versions of this game?
Well, the previous versions of this game were essentially a practice run. They were like the first adventure games I made in AGS, so I've had about 4 years of development between those and this. But when you start playing them, when you start playing games, I'm sure everyone has noticed things. They sort of think they would do things differently if they made it, or and so you sort of you make notes to include it when you do get around to making games.
Sorry, wrong number.
Or sometimes, in some rooms, Lau or whoever your other partner is in the room,
I think I found the office manager's
will
contact.
stand there. But that's
See if he'll help
if they
us.
really have
Remember,
to, like
be
if I want
consistent
to
when
make sure
you're
they're not
talking
getting in the way of something. But most of the time, it just sort of it'll just be dull or.
Mr. Atwood, my name is Dr. Regis. I'm an investigator.
I say unrealistic. It's all pixels, but it's sort of unrealistic if your partner, who's supposed to be a detective, just stands there like a lemon.
We're investigating
this is Dave
a
Gilbert
serious
you're talking to. He's the publisher.
I need to ask you a few questions.
Nuke, what happened?
He plays the office man. He plays about 5 different characters in this game.
So versatile voice actor as well as a game developer and publisher.
Oh, he's a real renaissance man.
Now, speaking of Wadgetai games, one of the interesting... I keep reading a lot about the idea of needing a publisher or the relationship between developer and publisher either changing or dying. With PlayStation, with Sony allowing self-publishing on PlayStation, with Kickstarter, with self-publishing, I think self-publishing or maybe something like that on Steam, not sure how that works, the business side of Steam, and with, again, GOG showcasing a lot of indie games as well. I look at Wadgetai and I see them as being the digital version of the old school American mom and shop stores, mom and pop stores. Sorry.
That's kind of a fair way of looking at it, but
don't worry.
For me, they were kind of
need access to
a route into the industry proper. Because if I were to just make Technobabylon myself, I would just source an artist and spend a year cobbling it together myself, I think a lot fewer people would have heard of it, would have played it. And it would have had a lot more difficult to get it on things like Steam and GOG. Whereas with the support of Wadgetai, they've already got connections on Steam. They've released the Shiver, Blackwell Games, Gemini Rue, etc. on Steam. People know Gemini Rue. So when people see this game from the publishers of Gemini Rue, it's a useful association.
Damn.
So people will see it and they know what they're getting from it. Whereas if it's just sort of Technobabylon,
his ID badge says
okay, what's that? Who's Technocrat?
Yeah.
If the
yeah. So I understand. I understand that point of view, but was there any, let's say, benefit in working with them that you maybe wouldn't have obtained working on your own? Some sort of experience from them working on other games and publishing?
Oh, definitely. But essentially, a lot of Dave's role was executive meddling.
Yeah.
So it was good to have Dave Wadgetai and his testers as kind of an objective third party to bounce ideas off. And sometimes in the older versions of Technobabylon, frankly, a lot of the things...
Not me, that's for sure.
I had my head up my own arse with regards to a lot of things. I wasn't really thinking in terms of, is this fun? Sort of more sort of me just building it for the sake of building it. But by having
the Mindjacker
freeze,
we're able to get feedback and suggestions. Like here, there's a significant bit that's about to happen here that was changed at Dave's request because of feedback. So
This is one of the more cinematic aspects, at least from what I've seen. This is probably where the demo ends, immediately after this. And I think it's really interesting how cinematic it feels and animated it feels, despite again being sort of this pixel art 2D point-and-click game.
The GOG demo goes a little bit further, but yeah, the regular Steam demo ends
people shooting at
after
its
this bit.
agents.
If you cut it out, maybe we'll put in a good word for you.
You're under arrest on suspicion of illegal trafficking of neural data, breaking and
Had somebody
entering,
telling me
and
I think
homicide.
Dr. Regis here looks like Jose Mourinho.
Let's not forget shooting at
Actually,
cell
that's
agents.
not. Yes, I told Ivan Newell to face.
The only
face the
way off
faces
this
of real
rooftop
people,
is
but
down,
I did not
either with
choose
us
Jose
or
Mourinho
over
for
the
Regis.
edge.
Frankly, the second one's fine by me.
And here he goes.
Whee!
What?
Because it wouldn't be science fiction without a jetpack.
Yeah, James Bond in Thunderball.
So originally, he made his escape by...
lifting gear.
He's
have you heard of-
escaping by
it's called a
aerostat.
Fulton
Central,
surface area
our
recovery
mindjacking
device,
suspect
like
has
a
fled the
balloon,
scene by air.
Interceptors
that somebody
dispatched.
deploys on the ground and
Telco
it's
officers
snagged
have
by
arrived on scene at
aircraft as they
Animus.
fly over.
Please return to
So,
headquarters for debriefing.
they've been in
Nuke it.
Metal
We're
Gear
so
and
close.
the second Dark Knight movie. But Dave, he said the balloon looked silly, so can we have a jetpack instead, he said. So,
Yeah, actually, that gives the character so besides the fact that he seems to be the mindjacker, it gives him sort of an additional layer of he's not only himself a powerful person, he has access to technology that goes beyond what all of the characters we've seen so far have.
We were so close. Have you found the aerostat he escaped to?
No records have been found of such a vehicle.
What?
Radar and air traffic records show no aerostat present at that time, and no communications traffic has been identified regarding the aerostat.
Maybe he deleted them? Covered his tracks?
That would require access to an improbable number of systems, including my own. Such an undetected intrusion into central systems is implausible.
Are you saying we're lying?
It is possible that you were mistaken. Human error. For the moment,
But in
you are
response to the people
advised
in
to
the comments,
pursue other lines of
they didn't
inquiry.
shoot him because their pistols
you
are
say so.
fairly short range, they're just stun
Something's
guns, so
going on
like
here.
tasers. If you shoot down someone on the shoot someone down who's on a jetpack, he's going to end up hitting the street and probably exploding and collateral damage, dead pedestrians. That's too much paperwork to deal with.
One of the questions that was asked a bit earlier, and I postponed it up until now. So we've seen the first character living in her apartment and sort of being from, let's say, the unpleasant part of town, or the less fortunate part of town, and now we're seeing two cell agents, and we're going with them on their adventure. Does the game have one? Later on, a single protagonist, or will it always have the sort of switch between different characters telling a combined, let's say, Rashomon, if you know the movie, style story, different points of view of the same events?
It's only the same events up until the end of Part 3. If people have played it, they know what happens at that stage. But after all three of these characters, Regis, Lau, and Latha, they're all playable characters, and for the most part, it's sort of one character per section.
Trying
The
to tidy
very,
Lau's
very
desk
last
for
section
her
is
is a
between all
battle
three of them
lost
at the same
before it's
time.
even fought. That's what she says, like it was something from the art of war.
Yeah, I like the idea of having three characters because it's a good way of sort of giving different interpretations of the same world from different perspectives. Because Regis, he's an old-fashioned technophobe. He's uncomfortable with a lot of the way society's turned out here. He's just sort of grumpy old man. Lau, she loves it. She's very big on this culture. She loves what the city stands for. And she's a bit more cheeky as well.
An interesting question, since you mentioned you had a working prototype, if I'm not misusing the word, for this game around 2011. How long in total did it take you to get to the point where you're now releasing, let's say, a complete director's cut final version of the game?
Well, originally I started making games in October 2010, and sort of parts 1, 2, 3. Oh no, just 1, 2, and 3. Then they took about 6 months grand total to make, and the problem is I kept stalling every time I tried to make part 4. I found that by the time I'd gotten to the end of that, quite objectively, I'd improved. My art style was completely different to how it was when I'd started the episode. So it took about 3 years of that before I sort of accepted and said, fine, whatever, get somebody who knows what they're doing to do it. If first you don't succeed, pay someone else to do it. So that was about 18 months ago. I got Ben Chandler on board, and with him we built a demo out of the first episode, which we showed to Dave Gilbert of Wajitai. He liked it, and he'd just hired Ben by that stage full-time, so that was even easier. Meant I didn't have to keep paying Ben for his work. And the production of this game itself took about 14 months, I'd say, start to finish. The actual making of the game, the assets for it, finished in about October last year, but for the last few months, so much of the game is about testing, tweaking, fixing things, adding new little bits here and there.
Now, you mentioned at the start of the stream that you had some experience in working with Doom WADs. Am I to understand that you actually ended up releasing to the public some levels for Doom?
It wasn't so much the public, because this was in 1996, and the internet was sort of something mysterious and peculiar. We lived in Kuwait at the time, and there just was no internet. But the first proper thing I built in Doom was a WAD based on my own school. So warning signs. That James, he's a dangerous kid. But that was the first thing. I built a lot of levels based on real things for Doom, and then Half-Life 1 moved on to the same kind of thing. I had lots of ideas for mods I wanted to make in Half-Life, but didn't get very far because lost my attention span, or other things got in the way. But it was all good practice.
Yeah, I mean, Doom was an interesting, I think, stepping stone towards modern graphics engine. There's still things that you can do with it that are relevant to the development of modern engine games, games based on more modern engines like the Unreal engines or Unity. I think, at least from what I keep reading online, there's a lot of people who still practice at building Doom levels. There was this interesting YouTube video series of John Romero playing some games with someone from Double Fine, playing the Doom game and talking about the behind-the-scenes making of. And that person had also made, the person from Double Fine had also made some Doom levels, and he was one person who worked on the first BioShock, and he recreated the one level from BioShock in the Doom engine. Now, of course, it's a completely different and much more rudimentary, but the AI placement and sort of scripted events and things like that, he could relatively easily replicate in the Doom engine.
Doom is very flexible, and these days, with things like GZ Doom and the sort of Doom-ish engines for running WADs people use these days, you can do all kinds of new things. They've got real-time lighting and reflections these days, but Doom is a great place to start with if you're looking to sort of make, just make something. Doom is so simple. They can get it to run on printers these days, literally.
Yeah,
Canon printers with screens. You can see people playing Doom on the little LCD screens.
This is an interesting email that Dr. Regis has. It says that as per our discussion at your last checkup, you still have not opted for enhanced neuroconnective wetware. So just like you said, where our first character was addicted to being connected to everything via the trance, Dr. Regis here hasn't even got the latest enhanced neuroconnective wetware installed, and the thing that I like is this mention here: please remember that your work will be increasingly difficult as support for non-wetware, I think this WW, that's what it means, systems is phased out. Kind of reminds me of things happening in real life where they're beginning to implement sort of technological barriers that maybe older people are reticent to pass.
It is so much of this is a reflection of what's going on at the moment in this game. It's something people can relate to. People will have seen this happening in their own lives, and I think it will keep happening as long as there's technological advancement. There will always be people who are stuck being comfortable with how things used to be.
Your monthly payment of
8100 Quanta.
Okay, for the rental of the, I didn't know what that meant, sorry. For the rental of the Tier 42 Northwest Balcony Garden has been processed. Thank you for your continued contribution to the city's green skyline. This reminds me of Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, where there were those real animals that people kept, I don't know, collecting, if that's the true word, or...
looking after and everything.
Yeah. Sort of maintaining pieces of nature and real life instead of manufactured life, let's say.
Here, Central is not happy because Regis, who is not happy with Central, he goes around, he sabotages more cameras in Cell than anybody else. You know, there are hoodlums in the cities who graffiti everywhere, but breaking Central cameras, that's just asking for trouble. Regis, he doesn't care. He hates Central's guts.
Quickly going through these emails just to see if this is the point where I don't know anything where anything is. So up until now we were pretty much safe. We still have an hour to go, and I'm hoping I don't get stuck too much. So guys, I've asked before the live stream started, I told James that if I get stuck, he's free to spoil certain puzzles and things like that just to help me move along. I hope you guys don't mind.
Also, here is the bit with the if you go back on the terminal where it says VoIPcom at the bottom.
Okay.
If you enter a random number, sort of even like one digit or anything, and then call.
Hello, this is Philippe. I am away on assignment
So
at the
this is
moment
one
for
with
1 month.
102 different responses from over 50 random people who contributed their voices to the game.
So any number that you type.
Yeah, some people wanted, so if you type the same number again, you just keep getting the same response, but it was more hassle than it was worth, and it's a lot easier just to be able to dial the same number for everything else, just in gameplay terms.
And randomizing it gives you a chance to hear more of the voices.
Exactly. It's sort of it's semi-random, because once you've listened to one, it won't play that one again for at least 100 calls. So, if you call 100 times, you won't hear the same answer.
Eurofed adopts metric time. It's interesting. Eurofed, is that a sort of a futuristic?
Yeah, it's sort of an evolution of the European Union in a sense. It's sort of an expansion, and not just geographically, but in terms of their authority and their power. And they represent one of the big superpowers in the world, as it is in Technobabylon. But they're culturally, they're very wealthy. They're technologically advanced, but they're sticklers for controlling everything and organizing everything, making sure everything is just so. In this case, sort of adopting metric time as a sort of scientific alternative to old-fashioned analog 12-hour, 24 hours. That's so imprecise. Let's just go for 10 and 10.
A bit of a racy magazine. Yeah. Okay, so that weather report mentioned it's better to stay indoors both at night and during the day. I take it that in this version of the future you're describing in the game, the ecological problems are getting worse instead of better.
Oh yes, on the news reports, on the weather report, the UV level is sort of dangerously high. So daytime UV 7 to 8. That's sort of, if you stand around outside for an hour, you will end up with melanoma, kind of thing.
Oh.
It's part of why everything in the game is set at night, because people don't go outdoors during the day in this part of the world here.
So let's close this, I guess. Oh, I believe we'll find out later who these people in the photo are, or
the one on the right, that's Dr. Regis, that's Charlie.
Okay.
About 20 years earlier, because it's 2066 in the photo.
And that would be his wife, or is that a spoiler?
It would be his wife, yes. But we find out more about that in a little bit.
Okay.
So check your inventory, I just want to check something. Yeah, okay, you got it. So
I trust Max, but I know Central will hear
essentially
everything.
the email
Cell
said,
headquarters.
open that up somewhere private, but in the middle of Cell, that's not really private,
Hey, Lau.
Yeah.
Lau's watching, Central's watching.
Okay, let's
Let me know if you find anything.
Will do, Regis.
explore for a little bit. Very clean looking, sort of clinical.
It's sort of it's supposed to look like it's sort of designed by an emotionless machine kind of thing. I built a lot of the model that it's based on, but I think Ben, the artist, took a lot of inspiration from the recent Syndicate game. Someone else he knew who worked on it did the sort of concept and scenery art for it, and I think Cell and Eurocorp share a lot of, they share the same decorators.
Hey, kid. You alright?
He's in a state of shock.
Yep, he comes back later in part 4 as well.
I like it when games do this sort of thing where there's a background character or a little detail that you may notice and then comes back later on in the game to play a role, however small or large, up to the game designer, of course. But I like it when they do world-building elements, as I like to call them.
Santiago must be working on something he doesn't want me seeing.
It's a great way to add detail to it, and it's something you can do in games that is sort of unique to games as interactive fiction.
System shock. Yeah, sorry. Watching this seeing this photo here reminds me of System Shock. If you know the poster for those games.
Yeah, there's lots of little references to things, sort of homages. We're not plagiarizing, we're making homages to things.
Yeah, and Oceania, that's a reference to 1984.
Exactly. Well, kind of. Oceania Cooperative is one of the governments in Front Mission. They're sort of big robot games on the PlayStation.
Oh.
So, the Oceania Cooperative are sort of Australia, New Zealand, and bits of Polynesia. So this, basically I copied this driving scene almost verbatim from anime, because...
Yeah, exactly, I see the connection now.
It's one of those bits where, a lot of people making games in AGS, the first response would be to make it sort of a road sort of sliding sideways and above you. But this, it just seemed like a more interesting way to do it. Use parallax to create the illusion of motion on the road.
When people worry, there's always something they find to help them. Drinking, the trance, even God sometimes. Me, I've got a place I like to go to. It's helped me when I've been troubled in the past.
Yep, the garden he was paying for.
Exactly. Anyone who's played the second old Technobabylon game will recognize this garden. There used to be a girl trying to commit suicide in this garden. She tried to hang herself from the tree branch, and Regis would have to contrive a way to get her down. He'd have to perform CPR on her until Lau arrives. But again, it was one of those cases where Dave and Wanjatai decided the pacing of the game didn't quite suit it at this stage, so we added the office bit instead. And I think that worked better in a way, because, Jetpack is more futuristic.
Yeah, and I don't know, personally, I would have found it maybe a little bit disruptive if I came here because I assumed this would be a quiet place for me to open that attachment.
You are exactly right.
And had there been sort of a shocking event like someone trying to commit suicide, maybe if the game were episodic instead of being one long adventure, maybe that would have worked then, but...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, as an episode it worked just fine. So yes, what does the plaque say?
Better not move. It's where it's where it ought to be.
Oh, that's the interaction. Right click on it for look at rather than...
Oh, okay. Not even having to glance for a moment, those words are etched in a memory deeper than anything else. Oh, Viksha Regis, beloved wife, friend to all that lives. 11th of August 2034, the 2nd of January 2067. Think of us not as engineers, but as artists. Yeah, so this is in memory of his wife that has passed away.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, that pile of leaves used to be, in the previous version there'd be a bottle of vodka hidden in there as part of the puzzle, but again,
a lot of work
the moon logic, so we had to get rid of it.
This engineered tree is the kind of memorial I think she'd appreciate.
Yeah, so genetic engineering, another thing that's at the moment making its sort of stamp in the media. They're talking about, well, they're doing it already.
There's all kinds of interesting issues about the legal ramifications of these things. Does it count as something you've written or made if you've genetically engineered it? What if you've made it out of other things? You know, if you've modified a sheep, do you now own that kind of sheep? Is it still a sheep?
Yeah, they've apparently found, they had this technology, genetic technology, to create human ears on by using rats, growing the ear out of the rat's skin. Now they've apparently found, I think I read this, I'm not sure if I remember correctly, it was a while ago, to do it using human skin, so on your back or something like that, because it would be from your own skin. Now the question that you're asking is, if it's growing from someone else's back, is it still my ear or is it that theirs?
It's all very exciting.
Or frightening.
Here goes nothing.
Dr. Regis.
Yes?
Mysterious.
Regis? Central's still giving us a negative on the aerostat. It's like it just vanished. So I thought I'd better give you a heads up.
Do you mind? I was in the middle of something. How did you find me?
Central told me you'd be here, at Fulcrum Tower. Also, it said, stop turning your traveler off.
What a surprise. I like my privacy, though. That's why I come here.
You hang around the balconies much?
You have the option of being honest or a bit more secluded.
Yeah.
Let's be a bit more secluded.
I come up here from time to time.
I can see why. It's a great view. Not for someone with a fear of heights, though. Is it a private garden?
Max,
Viksha Regis. Charlie, this is... I'm sorry. I didn't know.
You shouldn't. I don't tell anyone.
Wow. I know you've got some seriously high-up strings you can pull, but I didn't think they'd ever let someone be buried up here. And how the hell can you afford somewhere like this?
We were married for 4 years.
I'm sorry it couldn't last.
We met in our professions. She was a gen engineer as well.
You didn't have kids?
My previous work, well, it left both of us infertile. We had embryos prepared through IVF, but we never got to using them.
I'm really sorry. I remember reading... It was Baxter, wasn't it?
Don't push it, Dr. Lau.
Sorry.
So that's interesting. So at this point the game just took on a more mature tone. It stopped being just a murder / mind hacking science fiction story. It touches on very human subjects.
He lost his wife 20 years ago, but a lot of what he does is still, he's still moping 2 decades later, and it's very much affecting the way he's been behaving since then. His garden is his main focus outside
like
of work.
Anyone else.
I see.
The tree's special, though. I made it myself, from scratch.
Planted and grew?
No, made. It's a cross of Chrysophyllum canito and Prunus cerulata. The junk DNA in every cell of it contains her entire genome.
Wow.
Takes a lot of looking after.
But you're doing it for her.
Makes it all worth it.
I think I figured out why you went off the grid to come up here tonight. You heard about Baxter, didn't you?
They let a monster like that walk.
They didn't parole him because they approve of what he did. He's out because he's got skills Central thought would be useful. With a governor jammed in his limbic system, well, he won't be the same man. He can't even imagine hurting anyone again.
So, in the future, the Department of Corrections has found a way to manipulate
On the bright side, he'd probably be pretty
the
mad
minds
too.
of criminals,
well,
let's say.
If he could have
Kind
thoughts
of.
like
Have you
that
ever seen
anymore
or
without
read
falling
Clockwork
over and
Orange?
puking, you put
I've
him
seen the
away,
movie
and
a
that counts
while
for
ago,
something.
yeah.
I know it's not
kind of
exactly
similar to
normal
that,
for
but
you
done
to
with a
open
sort of
up, but if you want someone to talk to,
electromechanical
Central wants
machinery,
us.
so it's
I'm
designed to
afraid
sort
so.
of
We better
inflict
get
a great
going.
deal of pain if they think the wrong thing. But it's done as a last resort
You
in
coming?
severely incorrigible criminals. In this case, Dr. Baxter, who was responsible for murdering Regis's wife 20 years ago.
Damn it, Max. Just get moving. I want a moment to reflect.
So in order to allow him to be paroled,
Max,
he had to be fitted with one
Came
of
out
these.
wrong. Things
So-
haven't been going great today.
Regis is not happy about
Max,
him being paroled, but is...
Yes?
Nothing.
That's all right,
you know,
Charlie.
you can't
I
argue with
understand.
Central about
I'll be
it.
in the car.
I also like the interaction
I can't
between the
ask for
two
her
partners.
happiness.
It's really
I'm
interesting.
not even sure what this is yet.
It's beyond the usual cop, old cop, young cop banter.
You are alone, as requested.
Yes? Now what is this about?
1448D-A, 1448D-B, 1448D-C, 1448D-E.
Excuse me?
Your stomach lurches as you recognize the image. You know them, you've seen them before, but you hadn't remembered them by number. These are evidence. Whoever is calling you has 4 embryo containers, your own.
What about them?
The ones
They
he
were
created
removed
with his
from
wife
the
20 years
Alracis
ago.
Medical Center, originally deposited at 1615 on the 11th of November 2065. They have been fertilized by yourself and Dr. Victor Regis. They were frozen at the earliest viable phase of growth. 3 are female and 1 is male. They were deposited after your fertility treatment proved...
Stop! Why are you telling me this? Who are you? And what are you doing with my kid... my embryos?
You are about to meet with a contact, Gil Vanderwall. In his home is an active memory module, a most unique model. You will secure it for us. Further instructions will follow.
The plot thickens.
Exactly. So they have his kids, well, his embryos, his potential kids. Is it still kidnapping if the kids aren't born yet? Ooh,
Fine.
That's an interesting ethical question.
It is. Is he being pro-life by trying to save their lives if they're not born yet? Or is he just clinging on to these artifacts of his long-dead wife?
That's one of the things that I really... so my experience in playing adventure games is limited because growing up, my experience as a gamer was influenced by the people that played games around me. No one was playing adventure games. For some reason it wasn't a thing. We were all playing car games or sports games or shooters. But the one thing that always stood out for me in adventure games is the fact that they can delve into stories that go so many different ways into, you know, diving into human psychology, human psyche, ethical issues, and even sometimes doing it with in a tongue-in-cheek way.
It's part of the potential for it. So, I mean, I think, you know, if I could, I'd probably make an RPG out of Technobabylon next, but you know, that would still be.
I think I can accept
something
that.
like Knights of the Old Republic. They managed to explore issues in that as well.
Yeah, RPGs are interestingly so. I think there's a few game types that allow themselves to, or that are suited to telling deeper stories. Are adventure games, RPGs, and I think stealth-focused games also have that advantage because you're essentially always listening into conversations.
I thought Vanderwall made it pretty clear he wasn't going to speak to us.
Might just be the way you handled him. Tact is apparently not your strong point.
I like to speak my mind. What did he say?
When I showed this scene to Wodgetai at first, Janet Gilbert, who basically handles conversions to apps and the iPhone, etc., she said this scene's going to murder the iPhone. So we're going to have to alter it a little bit for that happen.
So a mobile version is definitely something that you're considering.
Wodgetai aim to convert this to mobile, but there have been health issues they've been dealing with, so the conversion program has been put on hold for the moment because Janet's the one who handles that. Plus they've got a 2-year-old daughter now to deal with, so all of her time's been
Please seek an expedient
occupied with
resolution
that.
to the situation. Central out.
Business-like as ever. Let's
Yeah,
get to it.
these games, I actually think I'm happy to see one of the things that I once wrote about, and it's on my website, is I wrote that I think that the industry at the moment is still, the gaming industry at large is still suffering from something which I call platform addiction. When publishers, AAA publishers and developers do those, PlayStation or Xbox exclusive games, or choose to release on a certain platform instead of all of them because of business reasons and things like that, I think the industry is misguided in its belief that a platform will protect one's financial security in terms of game development. I think the future is where we're all all owning one tablet-like device that we carry with us and serves as a phone and tablet and everything else, and we get home, we plug it in, and it becomes this media center that streams movies, TV, and games to large displays.
Eventually, we just run it in our heads.
Yeah, exactly, or something like that. That's in the advanced, in the let's say very distant future, or not very, but it's the distant future. I just think that it's interesting when I hear people say, "Oh, yeah, we should put it on this, we should put it on that." I don't like. So I saw Gemini Rue, a little bit of it on iOS, and it pretty much was the same game as it was on PC. That was a good thing. I've seen other games that were designed straight for the mobile arena. One recent example was another Cyberpunk game series that I won't mention, that is a fan favorite and has the letter D at the beginning of its name. They have a mobile game design, and it was a completely different and lesser experience.
Yeah, they built that one in Unity, I believe. They used assets from the Unreal Engine, but like the graphics and models and things. But
that's a job for the corpse,
that game in particular, the iPhone one. In fact, even
supposedly
these
these
things
things
are
are
interactive as
interactive.
well. Were built in Unity.
Considering
which is
joining
what
the
we're
present
thinking of
day,
going
aren't
to
you,
next.
Regis?
But probably not doing it exactly the same way they did.
Yeah, of course not. I mean, I think point and click also works. I used to have it burned out by itself, an Android tablet, a cheap one, and I put Scum VM and Flight of the Amazon Queen, if you know the game. It's a point and click adventure game, sort of an Indiana Jones like tongue-in-cheek adventure game. It's an old school game, and it doesn't have this sort of the movement and interacting with objects is done via those old school interface buttons.
I believe it's the same people who did Beneath the Steel Sky, who did Amazon Queen as well.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the experience of playing that. So it was a PC game played on an Android tablet via Scum VM, which is a Scum engine emulator, and I really liked that experience. I thought it would be weird because it's a game that was designed for PC, but the point-and-click adventure games, I think, especially the ones that don't necessarily require that much graphical horsepower, are very suited to the mobile experience.
I think there's a lot of potential for point-and-click on tablets and handhelds, but I think a lot of people are still making them in the mindset of somebody controlling them with a mouse. So I think there's a little bit more experimentation to be done with them to make them ideal for tablets. Touchscreens.
I think one of the other things is that people are also assume that the owners of the device will be less willing to play a complex or a game that requires complex interaction, like Technobabylon is, because you have an inventory, you have an interface, you have things that you have to click on. They are far too willing to remove the player agency, the player importance in playing the game, just trying to, I think, appeal to a wider audience. And but while doing that, they actually end up alienating potential customers. Like that's one way I look at it sometimes.
Supposedly these things are interactive if you're wired.
Considering joining the present
The
day, aren't
adverts
you,
used to have
Regis?
many more frames of animation in them. Ben went and did so many frames of animation, but unfortunately we had to drop about 3/4 of the frames because we had like an asset overflow, which caused the game to
over here.
crash because there were literally too many
I'm Dr.
sprites
Regis.
in the game.
This is Dr. Lau. We've been assigned as crisis management.
Corpsman Durian, 4th Network.
Has it gotten any worse?
Not yet, but we've not heard any word since...
Hey, I'm the only one here who hasn't got wiring in his head. Central hasn't had the decency to update me.
Oh, sorry, Charlie.
Well, it's another one, sir.
Another what?
A, bomber.
So I like the fact that when there's that conversation screen where you see the large profile pictures for the characters, that they change depending on the mood of the line being said. A lot of adventure games would just have one static picture for everything.
Yeah, that's one of those things that I found annoying in other games, so was determined to
what do you
make
mean,
sure
another one?
to include
This is like the
expressions
fourth year I
faces
know
in
of.
this one. So
Central's been doing its
most
best
of
to
the
keep public
characters have at
awareness
least
down.
two
I
expressions.
guess it doesn't want public panic about
Regis now and Latha
Or
have
it doesn't want people to think
considerably
we
more.
haven't got it under control.
Yeah, they're the
So
main
how do you
cast.
know about it?
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
talk to people. I've got a social life, unlike someone.
Central marked him when he tripped a chroma sensor. Central locked down the trains and started an evacuation. It looks like he panicked and holed up in one of them.
Answering Arcana, how long the game is approximately. The average player going through it takes about 10, 11 hours. I can do it in 2 by skipping all of the dialogue and knowing exactly what to do.
Yeah, well, I tend to take a lot more time than than other people at playing any game at all. Like I always go to howlongtobeat.com and it tells you what the average, let's say, playtime for the people who submitted that information to that website is, and this first-person shooter is 6 hours long, and I'm 12 hours into the game, going, I'm not even close to the end. What are these people doing?
Yeah, at least
Anyone in
adventure
danger?
games are the kind
Any
of games
hostages?
that you
Central's
can
not
play
mentioned
slowly.
any in
There's
the
a lot
case
of
file.
detail to look
That
at
either
in
means
them,
there
or at least there
aren't
should
any.
be. If you're not putting
Or
detail
it doesn't
in, then
consider them
personally I
sufficiently
think you're doing
important.
something wrong when you're
Probably
making
wants the
adventure games.
transit running again more than it cares about human life.
Yeah, I
Sounds
think
like he was surprised. Didn't have time to take any.
He's not thinking in terms of
adventure
hostages.
games are not
He was made as a
designed
weapon.
for speed running.
Just-
If you are
He's a
familiar with the
biobomb.
concept.
The explosives are
Yeah,
made.
I
They
never
are
understand.
his
I
bones.
have
That's
seen
how he
people
tripped a DNA
play
sensor.
even action RPGs, for example, Diablo. They would just open the game and click all through the dialogue, and I don't know what to do. The game just told you it was 5 little pieces of text that you closed. I just want to get to the combat and then get the combat done and level up and bam, game done. I don't.
If you're not play World of Warcraft.
So, if anyone in chat has any questions, I don't know why. I think for some reason my chat broke. I reloaded it, and it seems to be working now. If you guys have any questions for me or for James or about the game or about anything, don't hesitate to ask them now, or anytime during this live stream, I guess.
Do we have any support inbound?
Afraid not. There's a select team about 10 minutes out. But Central doesn't give this case a high enough public order cost to warrant it.
You mean it won't send backup because it doesn't want to worry people?
Sorry, Regis. And, you're not gonna like this. Central's just bumped the priority. It wants the suspect neutralized.
Neutralized is a vague term. I'm gonna try to talk him down.
Regis?
It sounds like he's hesitating. I may be able to exploit that, but just in case, get to high ground.
Fine. You probably know what you're doing.
The signal is hope. Don't fire until you hear me say it.
Hope. Got it.
Keep the public away, and run
So
one
this
more check
bit
for
is about to
bystanders
deal
in the
with,
station.
suicide
We can't
bomber who's
afford
threatening,
casualties if this goes
a
wrong.
train station.
Will Central approve
There
of
are
this?
3 different
We
endings
don't have time to
for
wait
it,
and find
'cause,
out. Wish me luck.
One of the things I tried to go for a lot in this game is multiple outcomes. There are multiple ways to solve puzzles, and yes, there are only 2.5 endings at the end of the game, but a lot of what people say and how they react to is based
Who's there?
around
I
the
just wanna
decisions you
talk.
take
I'm
and
unarmed,
the outcomes
and
you
I'm opening the
arrive at
doors.
as you play through the game.
Endless Night I was
What do
asking
you
if the
want,
game offers
heathen?
any graphic filters via the engine. Yes, there are graphic filters. I can confirm that. There's all sorts of anti-aliasing options you can activate through an options menu that you open through an executable file that comes with the game.
Yeah, you can. It's got MSAA and 2 times, 3 times, 4 times scaling and everything. I've seen some of the testers trying it, and it looks okay. It's not to my taste, personally, but it works. It definitely works.
You sound
So,
like you're from America.
Are you going to try to be
Am I
nice
right?
to him, or are you going to try to stall
Texas,
him long
I
enough
guess.
for Lau to get
Yes,
into position and
you're right.
shoot him down?
I thought
or
so. I
You
grew
can
up there
keep on
myself, near
provoking
Fort
and being
Worth.
mean to him.
What part do you hail from?
Houston.
I can remember
These
what
two
it's like out
characters, they're
there.
both supposed to
It's
be
part of why I
from
came here in the
Texas
first place.
originally,
I'm
and
Dr.
this is not
Regis,
one
by
of
the
those
way.
cases of
Some folk call me
all of our
Charlie.
voice actors are from New
Thomas
York, so...
Beckett.
Oops.
Like the Saint. Nice to meet you all, Thomas.
Yeah, but I doubt, for example, I'm from Eastern Europe. I may have an idea what a Texas accent would sound like, but I don't necessarily assume that everyone who lives in Texas sounds the same, so I don't think that's a problem.
Exactly. Anyone outside of the States, that's fine.
Yeah. I think if you would have said that they're both from Boston, then yeah, that would have been a bigger... I think the Bostonian accent, as it's being called, is a bit the most different American English accent that I've heard. They don't even say Boston, they say Boston or something like that. I'm sorry.
Boston.
Yeah.
So, how do you like the city?
G Pudding's asking how difficult it is just to make stuff with. If you want to make
Well, it's not my favorite,
basic
but I wouldn't go that
thing,
far.
it's not
I
hard
take
at
it you're
all.
not
It's
here
pretty
as a
much the
tourist.
easiest
I'm
one to
here to
start
do
with.
my duty and strike a blow for the Lord.
If you want anything more
Really?
complicated, you just
We're a
start
long
doing
way out from
scripting.
the war here.
But essentially
Whole other
everything
continent,
basic,
in
like
fact.
making the character walk to things, pick up things, talk to things, that's
But
all
now
handled
I'm
via
surrounded,
sort
and
of,
I must make use of what I
buttons
have,
and drag and
the
drop
fire
things
within
rather than
me.
script. So it's a good one to start with, I'd say.
How's the scoliosis?
What?
And the osteoporosis?
I've got a good friend with
the rickets and the
scoliosis.
diabetes.
She was kind of the
It's a common
inspiration
side
behind this
effect
because
of
she's
sloppy prenatal genetic
for years and
engineering,
years she's had
that
a
and having your
medical
body lay
brace,
explosive
walked on
nitrates in your
crutches.
bones instead of calcium.
And
It's a test of our faith.
you know,
Only the
when's the
truly
last time you
worthy
saw anyone
who
with
can.
scoliosis
It
in a
shows
game?
just
I
how
don't think
little the
that can get a great
engineers
deal
who
of,
made you cared about your health. They
representation
made
in
you
fiction,
to walk
let
and
alone
to carry a bomb in your
sci-fi
bones. The
games,
fact that
do
you're a
they?
living, feeling, thinking
Yeah, I
human
also
is
have
merely an inconvenience.
someone close to me who has osteoporosis. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Probably.
No, that's fine. You got that right.
Yeah. So I can relate to having aspects of your life influence your creativity. Of course, it's probably the best way to actually start putting something together when you're doing it, something creative. Start with the things you know. Should we take him out? Let's try to talk him down.
I know how you're thinking. You're wondering what you can do next.
I can always sacrifice myself.
But all that'll do is wreck a train, and maybe kill one cell agent. There are other options. You just need to know that they are available.
So the top option is the talk him down option. Spoiler alert. The third option is the provoke him, and the second one, if you keep giving the second answer, nothing will happen. Eventually you'll run out and Lau will shoot him.
Oh, okay.
You've been used, manipulated. Your genes were altered before you were even born. You never had a choice.
It's a
He
test
doesn't
of
rest
my
the rifle
faith.
on the railing
Your
because that would have
parents
taken more
probably didn't have a
animation.
choice either. If they didn't agree to do it for
Or she
religious
went to the gym and
reasons,
doesn't feel the
I know
recoil.
the warlords
It's
can
a very,
find
very
even worse
light
ways to
rifle.
persuade people.
Mother and father were always so
And
sad.
Captain
Couldn't
Judaism,
understand
my
it.
apologies.
I was going to do
as
God's
I say, the
will.
problem is we had
But
actors,
if I
when we
agreed
told
to go
them
with you,
Texan accent,
I
they would put
failed
on
my duty.
way,
I'd just
way
be a
too thick a
prisoner in a
drawl, and it
strange
was just
land.
getting
For the
so
Lord hears the
distracting.
needy and does not
So
despise his own
we
people
opted
who are
for
prisoners.
Eli Green,
Psalm 69, verse 33.
who could maintain this voice all the
Wherever
way
I
through
am,
the game. He's got
I'm
about
always in the Lord's
3 or 4,
sight.
There are more
just under
ways to do his
3,000
work
lines
than
of dialogue to
destruction.
get through. So
We can help you find it.
he's done
We
a
can probably even
as
fix
good
your
a job as he
bones.
can.
All
With,
right.
he's done an
I
excellent
shall
job in
not resist.
speaking for Regis throughout
Thomas,
the game.
you've made a wise choice. More
And
importantly,
congratulations, you've
you've
gotten
made it
surrender.
for yourself.
And I love the way
Corpseman, the
religion
suspect is
was
surrendered.
used in
Take him
this.
into custody.
Let's say
Carefully.
I personally would call it a much friendlier and logical way.
Regis, that was amazing. Central's going to be pissed, though. That was a huge risk.
It's kind of
Screw
a
Central.
situation.
Come on, we've
I
got
wanted to
work
do a
to
sort
do.
of perspective
The Corpseman
situational
can
change
handle it
because
here.
here,
Yeah, with a little help from the bomb
today, when people think, you know, religiously motivated suicide bomber, there's a particular stereotype that comes up. So partly it's aimed at subverting that a little bit in terms of the background of this bomber.
So, Vanderwall finally
So
agreed
they've
to
arrived at
cooperate.
Gil van der
Yep,
Waals'
said
apartment.
he could give us a head start on the Mindjacker.
We'd better not keep the man waiting then.
You've never struck me as much of an art lover.
I'm not so keen on this kind of thing. The mag coil keeping it floating, however.
Aha!
Adventure game characters being raging kleptomaniacs. That's just, that's a dumb thing in the...
One of the things that that's earlier in my gaming life, one of the things that put me off adventure games was, I don't remember the name of the game, but it was a game where it was a 3D engine game, and the main character was locked into this room, and my task was to control him to get him out of the room. However, none of the things that I found logical, as in break the window, kick the door out, use this on that, made any sense. And it turns out I had to do a whole bunch of connected puzzles to get... Although I had an object that would definitely be able to break the window, I had to use it to break something else and get a baseball that I would use to throw at something that would break a vase, that would give me a key, that would open a drawer. I'm like, this is not making any sense.
Yeah, sometimes they do go a little bit far, but Technobabylon, I've at least tried to have it kind of logically consistent.
My parents' old bot used to spend much more time in the charger than doing its job. I kept telling them to get a new one, but they never liked to spend until they
encounter the obstacle in this room. There are lots of ways to deal with it. I think something that's worth doing, if you can, is to come up with lots more solutions that are possible. Wherever possible, have more than one way of doing things. It rewards people. It's got more potential people come out with their own solutions for it.
He told us to meet him here.
It's
Central
also
hasn't logged any
it's
departures
an
from
interesting
this floor
storytelling
since this
device
morning
because it feels like it includes more people's preferences, while at the same time, so if you don't want to be violent, because earlier, for example, with the bomber on the train, we could have been violent and shot him. We could have been violent verbally and pushed him towards, doing something that we didn't want him to do. I think that gives people options, and it helps you feel included in the game story as a gamer, but at the same time, it gives you more options to replay the game. Yeah, sorry, I missed what she said.
We haven't got time for this, Gil.
Regis isn't able to get into the apartment. Lau's saying she doesn't seem to be answering. So, how do we get into the apartment?
It doesn't need magnetizing.
The drones are voiced by Nathan Pennard, our music and sound guy. He does the voice of all drones.
Oh, I clicked on the by mistake.
Cell agent.
We're going to have to try some...
Hey, open up. It's Regis. Nope, that's not going to work.
Let's see what she has to say.
Hey, Max.
What's up?
You've got a brain for wetware systems, right?
Don't you mean full of wetware systems?
This isn't just me being offensive. Can you have a word with the door controls?
I'll see what I can do.
Another thing that reminds me of Shadowrun here. In those games you have a party of characters that you control, and one of them is a decker and has the ability to hack things.
Got it.
It's kind of like in a lot of games like Fallout or even Deus Ex.
I'm just glad you're on our side now.
You can hack the door to get through. You could blow it up to get through.
I could probably make a lot more money if I turned to crime.
Climb through the vents and find another way through. Alpha Door 7 is absolutely correct. You could have shot the lock off as well, but you opted for Lao instead, so that's all well and good.
Gil, you in here? Oh, excuse us, miss. I'm Dr. Regis. This is Dr. Lao. We're cell agents. Miss, are you all right?
Regis, this is a synth. Huh, the look on your face is priceless. It's a very expensive one, but it's still a synth. And apparently out of charge.
A replicant.
Something else about it bothers me more.
It is indeed,
I know.
yes.
I sure hope that isn't
Or
blood.
synthetics in this game.
Hello?
I think I know what's wrong with it.
Hey, Max.
What's up?
Any idea what's wrong with the maid?
I couldn't even get a return signal out of it. My guess would be that it's run out of power.
Any way we can fix that?
It's supposed to charge itself, but apparently it hasn't managed to do that.
How? We can't haul that thing to a socket.
We'll have to charge the power cell itself. In a platform like that, the cell's usually in the upper torso, about where the heart would be.
You reckon that'd be easier to charge?
It's only about as big as your fist. Just have to get it out of her.
One of the things, so I kept quiet there because one of the things that I noticed and I really like about this game is that there's this, so I would assume that the actors were not recorded exchanging those dialogue lines at the same time.
No, we did manage to use a. This is the first Logitech game where we used a proper professional recording studio for recording the lines, but the recording thing was just a cupboard-sized booth. You've seen the video, so it was literally just a cupboard-sized booth in which they sat. So Eli, Ariel, they'd sit in the booth and do their lines, and Dave would be the other person they were talking to for every other line.
So the cadence of the speech then is really, really well handled, either in. And even the delivery matches there, it does feel like they're having a conversation, and when when it switches from one character to the other, there's not this uncomfortable, oh, we forgot to edit that out type of pause. So that sounds really, really nice.
They're good they're good actors in that they know what they're doing for, they understand how adventure games work. They know how
What's up?
the back and forth would be.
I couldn't even my
and
guess.
they've got
It's supposed to
the
charge
paper in front of them what the other person's going to say, but they've done a
managed
really good job of treating
in a
it like a
platform
conversation.
like that.
You reckon that'd be...
It's only about as big as your fist.
So, because I want you to see
Keep at it, Mac.
Can do.
the maid when she's awake, you see the cupboard under the food machine on the wall. On the left?
On the left, okay.
Just right a little bit.
Cabinet, it said it right here.
Right a little bit. Down, right.
Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah. Knife and cooking gel. Use the knife to get the power source out.
Ding. Adventure games.
Although
What
this...
are you up to?
Just doing some surgery.
And I love the voice acting. The actors are really, really well suited. So we need to recharge this.
Where have we seen a charging machine?
Yeah. I love it when this type of logic works, but when you're doing an adventure game like some of the older ones, I think one of the reasons why adventure games for a while went a bit away from the popular, from the mainstream, let's say, of computer games, is the simple fact that
We're already...
they started becoming over convoluted in terms of the way they were designed.
Yeah, I think some people mistook doing more stuff as improvement. It's kind of like how everything, so towards the end of the 90s, everything became more graphics as sort of improvement. So they figured more puzzles was the way to improve it, and that wouldn't necessarily have, that just didn't help necessarily.
Kernel executing SBININIT. Calibrating CI state with USD. Oh, that is better.
Shelley Shenoy, she was the casting director. She's the voice of the maid, and she's a really good actress as well because she sort of has to play 3 different characters as the
Surely
maid.
you realize, monsieur, all the best maids in the world, they are French.
When people play
And
this
the
game,
best
they'll find
lovers,
out
I
why.
hear.
But she's really
What are
good
you
at this.
implying, mademoiselle?
I never
We
had
didn't
Neil
need
down
to
as
cast
quite
anyone
such
else for
a
this.
Francophile.
I don't know if you've
I'm
seen,
also
there's a
very
YouTube
discreet,
video from a channel called The Richard
When you care
Perspective
for
on
someone
Technobabylon.
German, there are a lot of things that you hear.
Oh yeah,
or
yeah,
do.
Richard Cobbett.
Yeah, and
Such slender.
Shotgun.
And even if
I got
true,
a sneak
I would
preview,
not
let's say,
say
at this
I have
moment.
Monsieur Guerre's confidence to think
Yes,
of.
yeah. That's a good place to see it if you want a sample of
Who are you?
the changes
Je
she can
m'appelle
do.
Chantal. I am Monsieur Guerre et Monsieur Dacqueray's maid.
You're a synthetic maid?
Pardon, mademoiselle? I do not understand.
A synth.
Excusez-moi, what is
So
it?
she's refusing to acknowledge that she's
stays in character.
synthetic.
Of course.
masters with their household things.
And where were you made?
The thing that makes me laugh the most
Mademoiselle, I
is
was born in
the way the
France.
dialogue was typed.
Yeah, because all French people I know run on
It started
graphene
off as
power
sort of, I
cells.
was doing it as a way to direct the, originally back in part
Thanks.
2,
My pleasure.
when I made it in 2010, there weren't any recorded
Hey, Max.
voices,
What's
so
up?
it was a way to
That's an
emphasize
They can do
just
all
how
s-
French
it's
it was, and then it sort of
probably
stuck around as a way to direct
Well,
Shelley
they won't
how to talk.
you're not
for
going to
this bit.
traumatize
And then it
so
just kind
Mr.
of,
and Mr.
people
Vanderbilt
liked
probably
it. It
got
stuck.
to
It's
join
funny.
in one.
You know, it's stereotypical.
I forget you didn't grow up with synthetics.
was hoping that maybe we
Keep at
could
it,
have
Max.
gotten
Can't be
her
Regis.
to trance with them.
Unfortunately not, no. I think if Latha were in this scene, that's probably something I'd have done, but no.
Okay.
Just to the right a little bit, there's the stairs.
Oh, yep.
Yep.
Thank you for that. We're 6 minutes away from having to close this, unfortunately,
Jesus
so
Christ.
thank you for the tips.
What the
I
hell
thought it's probably
happened
the time
in
for
here?
it.
Did someone get to Vanderwall before he could talk?
Maybe it's a domestic gone bad?
Ooh. So you need to find out what they demanded.
We should check around first.
What?
We need to get a look at it ourselves before the crime scene people wreck it.
That's... I'm not sure. Okay, I
Good
actually
idea.
agree.
Really?
Well, yes.
Who are you and what have you done with Charlie Regis?
What do you mean?
You're unusually cavalier today. You got something on your mind? I mean, I know you don't usually care what Central...
So I skipped that for a little bit because I wanted to say that the relationship between them reminds me, sort of in a side note kind of way, and excuse me for making all of these references, to a Clint Eastwood Charlie Sheen movie from a long time ago from the 80s called The Rookie. Clint Eastwood was the older, more gruff, let's say, policeman, and Charlie Sheen is the young, hotshot detective joining and becoming his partner.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, he's sort of that is the kind of role they've got. He's acting as like a mentor to her. He's been in cell
This
for
time I think it could
decades.
help us get a lead on our investigation.
She's
Besides,
newer.
all the time we waste.
She's more of an
let's get
expert on how things work in the real world these days. She's more street smart, as it well, net smart.
Exactly, yeah. Need a hand?
Use that hand with Lao.
Okay.
What do you make of this?
Is that Gil Vanderwall's hand? Why the hell did you pick that up?
I thought it might be useful.
What, a snack? Since when do we collect body parts?
Yeah, basically, in this bit, when you've got Lao around, you can show her anything you've got, sort of, to get her opinion. It's sort of one of these ways of getting clues about what to do next. If you show Lao these things, she will give her opinion on them.
Well, I think calling this in the
There's
jacuzzi
something
a
at the
body
bottom of the pool. A
was
pistol?
a bit ambitious.
One of them, maybe. It's too deep to reach.
Not without severely contaminating the crime scene anyway.
G Pudding in chat is saying that that's the new puzzle we need to solve. We have to put the guy back together. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. I think we need to get that...
I'd better not drop.
Nah, I think I'm doing it wrong.
I don't
You've
think
got
it
the
needs...
right kind of idea, but it's not quite. It won't reach quite deep enough to get the pistol from out of there. You would need some way to get it down there. And all right, you see the control panel on the left of the room.
Yep.
That opens the floor drobe.
Oh, okay. So.
Oh yeah, the floor drobe's stuck. There's like a coat hanger jammed in the seam around the edge there. Right a bit.
Okay. Nice. I would like one of those.
See anything interesting?
There's an empty
This is one of those rooms that we didn't build a 3D model for, but we did make the floor drobe out of a 3D model. Again, Ben rotoscoping over the model itself. He did a really good job with that.
Stuff again?
It might
But
be
we couldn't
useful.
quite get
Call
the
it up.
perspective right for the model in the room itself, so he did that one by eye himself, and I think it came out quite nice.
I wouldn't have known it wasn't sort of rendered made. It was I wouldn't have known that it was handmade. Let's say.
Nothing biting?
Unless you told me what you just told me, I wouldn't.
Nothing on the end of the line.
Yeah.
If you look at what he did in Epiphany, he's
There's no way to
definitely made a
hold
lot
it
of
on without a hook.
improvements. So how where can we find a hook for the?
Now it's got
Yes.
one enormous hook.
This was one of the
There,
puzzles
a
that some
magnet
of
at the
the
end of a fishing
reviewers sort
line.
of
For
commented on because they thought it seemed a bit too adventure gamey.
Oh no, I actually like these sort of puzzles because
The murder weapon?
they require to inventory puzzles when they make sense like this one.
What we
I don't
really
have a
need
problem.
is a witness.
Exactly. Yeah, I liked it. Then I made the game, so yeah, my opinion's moot on that one.
I don't
okay.
think I can justify taking that.
Unfortunately, I think this is about the time when we should probably end the live stream. We're about a minute away, and there's someone else coming after us, so I'm sorry for not getting to the maid.
We'll just have to let everyone else play it. So.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining me.
And thank you for watching us.
I was really curious about this game, and I was really excited about it because, like I said, science fiction combined with Wadjet Eye, for me, that's like a no-brainer. For definitely a game that I would really like playing, and I really enjoy the atmosphere in this one. Like I said, I've been sort of making a whole bunch of references to other things because I feel right at home playing this sort of game. Like I said, it's like reading a good book on a rainy Sunday.
Wadjet Eye know their science fiction, and I think, in all modesty, I think they made a good choice in backing Technobabylon.
Yeah, I agree. So far, this game looks fun, and I like the fact that it's got this sort of science fiction, Blade Runner-esque feel to it, but it also delves into really deep human things, like the one with the facts with the wife passing and the birth issues, the pregnancy issues there, and those embryos, and is that kidnapping or not? I love those subjects when they're touched upon in games, and I believe science fiction is kind of the only genre that allows you to do a lot of that.
So yes, there's a lot more of these high-minded scientific concepts in the full game, so everyone on the stream should definitely go to Steam or GOG to buy it, but yeah, it's out today. I think it's all working now.
You can, everyone in chat can type !game, and they'll get a direct link to where they can pick up the game on GOG.com.
And if you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at Technocrat Games.
Okay, James, thank you very much. We're going to end this right now. Thank you very much, everyone who has been in chat. I hope you enjoyed this. Sorry if I wasn't as interactive as always. I was fascinated about the game, and that kind of captured my attention.
Well, thank you for having me, Vlad.
Okay, everyone, stay tuned for Mike and Hotline Miami 2. Bye.
Cheerio.